contact tracing, isolation, and quarantine capacity, and are they efficient in doing these processes? Once they have established or proven that they have these capacities, no, we measure their, and these are the two new indicators, no, ADAR or ADAR, and the 2-week growth rate, no, or 2WGR. No. So once they meet again the cutoffs of this criteria, no, then we allow them through the gate, no, to a lower level of community quarantine. Next slide, please. So these are the criteria for escalation. No? If you look at the table, no, we've changed the cutoffs a bit. No? So instead of using the 30% and 70% cutoff, no, we're using 60, 70, and 85% at cutoffs, no, as cutoffs, no, for escalating communities or LGUs from GCQ to MECQ to ECQ. Next slide, please. Just to explain our two new indicators. No, the first one, average daily attack rate or incidence rate. Now, this is also incidence rate. No, attack rate is just incidence rate in the context of an outbreak. No, so this is just the number of new cases over a 2-week period divided by the population, the LGU. No? So this is the measure of risk of the population, risk of infection, no, in a certain LGU. So high ADARs means if you live there, your risk of getting the infection is high, and vice versa. No? For the second indicator, no, 2-week growth rate, this is a measure of the growth of the epidemic in that area. No? So we're comparing the number of new cases in the past 2 weeks to the number of new cases 3 to 4 weeks, no? or the 2 weeks previous to that. No? And we measure this in terms of percentage. No? So growth rates may be positive, meaning epidemic is growing, or it may be zero or negative, meaning it's stable or shrinking. Next slide, please. So we've assembled these two criteria, no, in a 3x3 table that shows the different levels of risk and the corresponding community quarantine status, including the new normal. No? So depending on the cutoffs, no, for each of these two indicators, no, we classify LGUs and they receive corresponding community quarantine status. However, let me emphasize that, again, now these are output criteria, but our focus now is to measure gatekeeping criteria first, no, before we even look at the output criteria. Next slide, please. And then these are just some examples of gatekeeping criteria. No? So as you see, no, they measure input and process. No? So for example, in terms of prevention, the number of epidemiology or surveillance officers, the number of births. No? In terms of detection, positivity rate, number of contact tracing teams, and in terms of isolation, no, number of isolation beds. No? So there are many more criteria, no? And we're developing others, no, to provide us a good measure, no, that LGUs have a sufficient capacity to control any outbreak, no, once they exit to or de-escalate to a lighter form of community quarantine or even to the new normal. No? Because without this criteria, without these capacities, no, pretty soon we'll have to escalate them again, and they lose all of the economic gains. I think that's my last slide. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. John Wong. Sir, considering the GCQ classification of Metro Manila, pwede bang babalik natin yung dual criteria? Yung dual criteria po, bakit po nagkaroon ng recommendation na GCQ ang Metro Manila using the two-prong criteria? Yung table po, no? Yan. Bakit po ang naging rekomendasyon ng IATF na nadeklara ng presidente ay GCQ for Metro Manila?
So it's actually two levels. No, we look first at the gatekeeping criteria before we look at the attack rates and growth rates. No, so evaluating the public health capacity. No, each LGU would show evidence that they have sufficient capacity in terms of testing, contact tracing, isolation, and quarantine. So if they have that criteria, then we look at this two indicators to classify them in terms of community quarantine status.
Okay, pero bakit nga po naging GCQ yung Metro Manila? Ibig sabihin ba yan, nasa medium tayo ng 2-week growth rate at tayo po ay nasa medium din ng average daily attack rate?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So tama po yung sinabi ko kanina. Maraming salamat, Dr. John Wong. I'm sure may iba pa tayong mga tanong kasama sa ating Malacañang Press Corps. Pinipilit din po natin ngayong isama sa ating press briefing ang representante po ng Solaire dahil nga po doon sa kaka-inaugurate lang natin na isolation facility, 600-bed capacity isolation facility. Pero habang kinokontak pa po ang representante, siguro simulan na natin ang ating open forum. Yusek Roque, please.
Yes, good afternoon, Secretary Roque. Good afternoon, Dr. Wong. Question from Arian Meres, ABS-CBN Online. Has there been any formal communication between the President or Malacañang and Facebook? What concrete action does the President expect from Facebook?
Wala pa pong concrete na action na ginawa ang Presidente. Kaka-anunsyo lang po niya yung kagabi. Ang konkretong action po ay wag pong supilin ang kalayaan ng malayang pananalita ng mga personalidad o mga pages na pabor po sa gobyerno. Kasi ang nangyayari po, kapag laban sa gobyerno, hindi po tinatanggal ang Facebook. Kapag sumusuporta sa gobyerno, na itatanggal po. So matagal na pong nananindigan ng ating Pangulo para sa malayang pananalita. Bakit naman dito sa physical personification, yung physical personification ng free marketplace of idea, sinesensor kapag kampi po sa gobyerno ang mga postings?
Second question po ni Arian, should the Filipinos be concerned of a possible Facebook ban in the Philippines following the President's pronouncements?
Hindi naman po siguro dahil ang sabi ni Presidente, kinakailangan mag-usap. Well, alam niyo po, parehong hindi mabuti yan sa Facebook at sa Pilipinas. No? Number 1 po kasi sa buong mundo tayo sa Facebook. No? So kung mawawala tayo, malaking kawala po yan sa Facebook. Pero at the same time, dahil number 1 nga tayo, marami rin Pilipinong gumagamit ng Facebook na maapektuhan din. No? So ang sabi naman ng Presidente, pag-usapan yan. Dahil pare-pareho naman silang sinusulong ang karapatan ng malayang pananalita at yung malayang merkado ng mga idea.
Last question from Arian po. The President last night said he will begin shaking the tree sa PhilHealth. He also mentioned considering abolishing it. For now, what exactly does the President want to do or happen to PhilHealth? Well,
binigyan po na hanggang bagong taon lamang si Atty. Giran para linisin niyang PhilHealth na yan. No? So figurative po yun, yung sinasabi niyang shaking the tree. Kinakailangan talaga tanggalin ang mga bulok dyan sa PhilHealth. At kung hindi talaga magawa yan by December, well, kinakailangan ng batas para buwagin po yan at palitan ng bago. Matagal ko na pong sinabi ito, pareho po kami talaga ng paninindigan ni Presidente pagdating sa bagay neto. Nung sinulong po natin ang Universal Healthcare Law sa mababang kapulungan, binuwag ko po sa aking bill yung PhilHealth at pinalitan ng National Health Service. Pero ginapang po ng mga taga-PhilHealth, by the time I was defending the bill in Congress, bumalik po ang PhilHealth at lalo pang napalakas.
Okay, thank you, Secretary Roque.
Okay, punta naman po tayo kay Michael Ray Aquino. Siya po ang magsasalita para sa Solaire Group. Sir, Michael Ray Aquino, are you in the house?
Yes, Secretary Roque, I'm here.
Yes.
Good to see you. Thanks
sir,
for having me.
Magkano po yung ginastos ninyo para dito sa 600-bed capacity isolation facility dito po sa Bagong Nayong Pilipino?
I think from the Razon Group, mga 225 million more or less, Secretary Roque.
225 million. Bakit naman po kayo gumasta ng ganitong kalaki para sa ganitong isolation facility?
I think from the very start, our chairman, Mr. Enrique Razon, and the group of companies under him wanted to help and assist the government recover the economy and open up our economy and help us flatten the curve with regard to fighting this pandemic, yung COVID-19.
Opo. Now, doon po sa facility na itinayo, meron ba hong mga tents doon na para gamitin din ng Soler Group or lahat po ito pampubliko?
Lahat pampubliko. Now, if ever na mayroon kaming kaso, we are welcome to use the facility. So, yun ang naging arrangement ng gobyerno at saka yung Razon Group of Company Secretary.
Ano pa po yung mga na-donate nyo na sa COVID-19 efforts ng Pilipinas bukod pa po dito sa 225 million 600 bed isolation facility?
Medyo marami na rin, Secretary. Among them is yung Nilayakin Stadium Quarantine Facility, yung Rizal Memorial Coliseum Quarantine Facility, yung testing centers yung sa may Enveran, tapos yung pag-distribute ng mga PPEs, gloves, and other rapid test kits nung unang nagkaroon tayo ng COVID-19 outbreak at marami pang iba. Siguro mga humigit kumulang ng 1 billion, 1.5 billion. Yun ang estimate natin.
Okay. Well, maraming salamat nga po dahil ang Office of the Presidential Spokesperson ay nabigyan po ng rapid test kits na siyang ginagamit namin sa aming mga kasama. Sir, if you can stay and join us for our open forum just in case meron pong tanong ang ating mga kasama sa Malacañang Press Corps. And again, thank you very much to the Razon Group, Soler, sa Prime BD, sa Bloomberg, Meralco, and Maynilad. Next question is from Joyce Balancho, please, ABS-CBN.
Yes, good afternoon po, Secretary. Yesterday, si President Duterte, he admitted that he offered to resign because of endless corruption in the government. Can you give us more details as to when he made this offer to resign? Was it recent? And who or what changed the mind of the President? Or up to this point, is he still considering or thinking of resigning?
Wala po akong detalye, no? Kasi doon narinig ko na po yan. Hindi naman po kauna-unang sinabi rin ni Presidente yan. Pero sa tagal ng kanyang panunungkulan bilang alkalde pa at vice mayor at ngayon ay Presidente, ang talagang frustration po niya, kumbaga, ay talagang hindi nawawala itong korupsyon. Kaya nga po, yung mga nagdududa kung yung aking mga pananalita laban sa korupsyon, lalo na yung mga regulatory bodies ay nagdududa kung ako ay nagsasalita on behalf of the President, malinaw po ngayon talaga. Zero tolerance po talaga ang Presidente laban sa korupsyon. Now, hindi po natuloy ang resignation ni Presidente. Tingin ko, hindi po siya magre-resign ngayon dahil 2 taon na lamang natitira sa kanyang termino. Pero igugugol po niya yung natitirang panahon niya para talagang linisin ang mga iba't ibang ahensya ng ating gobyerno.
Okay, sir. Follow-up lang po dun sa Facebook. Yung nga po, yesterday, President lambasted Facebook for allegedly laying down a policy for the government. And he goes on saying, and I will quote him, pati yung advocacy ng gobyerno tinanggal. So is this an admission from the President himself that the government is behind some of those accounts and pages that were taken down by Facebook? And since the President mentioned na pati yung advocacy ng gobyerno tinanggal, can you categorically label which pages are indeed part of the advocacies of the government? Kasi meron po doon pages, may referral to the possible presidential bid of Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte, merong anti-communist pages, meron din pong pages on West Philippine Sea issue.
Alam mo, pinaka-sensitive ang Pangulo dun sa Save Our Children page. Okay? Dahil yun po ay pinangangalagaan po ang kapakanan ng ating kabataan at sa larangan po ng international law, notorious po ang mga komunista in recruiting children as combatants despite yung absolute ban on the recruitment of children as combatants. No? Iyan po isa sa mga advocacy pages na natanggal. Hindi po yan minimaintain ng gobyerno pero yan po ay tumutulong sa advokasya ng gobyerno na isulong yung obligasyon natin sang-ayon po sa Geneva Conventions at dun sa additional protocols ng Geneva Convention at dun sa International Convention on the Rights of the Child. No? Bakit naman po nga tinanggal yung ganyang advokasya? So malinaw po ang Presidente, kinakailangang pag-usapan ito at hindi po kinukonsente ni Presidente ang censorship ng mga pro-government advocacies, no? Kasama na po itong advokasya to protect the children against child enlistment as combatants.
How about, sir, nabanggit ko po na other pages, like yung those with referral to the possible presidential bid of Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte, anti-communist pages. How about those pages, Secretary?
Well, lahat po yan ay advocacy groups, no? Ang punto dito, bakit kapag pabor sa gobyerno, tinatanggal? Kapag pabor sa oposisyon, hindi tinatanggal, no? Bakit ang fact-checkers laban sa gobyerno? Sino pa dito sa bayan na ito ang magdududa na ang Rappler at ang Vera Files ay talaga namang kontra sa administrasyon ni Presidente Duterte? Bakit sila lamang ang kinuhang fact-checkers ng Facebook? Hello, kung hindi ka kumbinsado na, na laban sila sa gobyerno, baka ikay taga-ibang planeta, no? So, anyway, ang iba't ibang mga bansa po ngayon, nagsisimula na yung proseso na gobyerno na ang kumukuha ng fact-checkers. Sinimula na po yan sa Europa at pag-aaralan po natin kung dapat gawin na natin yan dahil hindi naman tayo makakapayag ng fact-checkers tanging mga laban lamang sa gobyerno.
Last na lang po for me, Secretary. Si Trade Secretary Lopez said that more business under GCQ should reopen fully and expand their operational capacity. Yung mga naka 50% daw po baka pwede na buksan up to 100%. Is this something that the IATF will approve? And was it discussed during the meeting yesterday?
Again, ayaw ko pong pangunahan ang IATF. Pero ang alam ko po, nung huling pagpupulong ng mga mayor at ako po'y sumilip sa meeting na yon, sandali lang dahil I had 4 meetings ongoing by Zoom on a Sunday night, ay suportado naman po ng maraming mga mayor sa Metro Manila na bagamat nasa GCQ tayo ay mas marami pa o mas malaking sektor pa ng ekonomiya ay buksan. At ang ating kampanya nga po ngayon, we need to live with COVID and in spite COVID, kaya po yan. Pag-ingatan lang po ang ating mga buhay para tayo po ay makapaghanap buhay.
Thank you, Secretary.
Maraming salamat, Joyce. Christian Gonzalez, no? It's also on the line. Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Gonzalez. Are you on the line?
Yes, Sec.
Yes.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Christian Gonzalez is number 2 in the Soler group of companies. Sir, my question is, you have spent in excess of 1 billion pesos to help the government in the COVID-19 pandemic, including ito pong huling proyekto na in-inaugurate natin kanina, yung 600-bed isolation facility. Ang tanong po siguro ng marami, bakit ganitong kalaking ginagastos ng Razon Group para sa COVID-19 response po ng ating bayan?
Sec, thank you for having me on. No, we realized from the very beginning in many of our discussions with the government that this was always going to be a public-private sector effort against COVID. And we've been extremely committed to this together with the IATF and most especially on the Soler side, together with PAGCOR, who has really been the leading agency in working with us to build these facilities. Particularly the one in Bagong Naong, Filipino.
Alam ko po marami na kayong napagawa, no? Kasama, in-enumerate na po ni Michael Reyakino, yung World Trade Center, Rizal Memorial Coliseum, lahat po yan ay renovate nyo para maging isolation centers. Pero ang tanong ko naman po, titigil na ba ho ang Razon Group sa bibigay ng ganitong mga proyekto sa sambayanan or meron pang aasahan po ang sambayanan galing po sa Razon Group?
Kung ano ang kailangan ng ating bansa, Sec, gagawin talaga namin, whether it's through Soler or through ICTSI or through multiple cooperations with our regulatory agencies, itutuloy pa rin namin yan, sir.
Well, again po, on behalf of the President and on behalf of a grateful nation, thank you very much po to the Razon Group for all your donations, not in relation to our COVID-19 response, the latest of which is the 600-bed isolation facility. Thank you very much. And I hope you can join us also in case
Thank you, sir.
The members of the Malacañang Press Corps have questions. Yex, we go back to you, Sec. Roque, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yes, Secretary, from Jillian Cortez of Business World, are there new instructions by the President to PhilHealth CEO Geran regarding the President's address yesterday on wanting to reorganize PhilHealth?
Well, wala naman pong bagong instruction. Binigyan siya until December of this year, until end of the year, to fix up the mess in PhilHealth. Otherwise, baka po palitan na by legislation ng PhilHealth para mas mabilis yung pagtatanggal po dyan sa bulok. Yun lang po ang intensyon ng Presidente. Kasi po habang hindi binubuwag ang PhilHealth, may mga civil service eligibility po yung marami diyang nagtatrabaho and they're protected by civil service law. Matatanggal lang sila kung merong due process. Pero yung problema po talaga sa PhilHealth, talagang masyado na pong systemic yung problema. Napakadami nilang dapat tanggalin, napaka-pervasive po ng influence nila, kaya iniisip ng Presidente baka mas mabuting i-abolish and start from scratch. Yung mga matitino naman po, wala kayong dapat alalahanin dahil alam naman po ng Presidente kung sino talaga ang bulok at sinong matino at naninindigan pa rin ng Presidente na marami pa rin pong mga mabubuting mga manggagawa ng gobyerno dyan po sa PhilHealth.
Second question ni Jillian, will their president kick more officials out of PhilHealth even before the investigation are over?
Sa tingin ko po, dahil nandyan na po yung initial report ng Task Force PhilHealth at nagsalita na rin po ang PACC na 40 pa ang kanilang kakasuhan, asahan na po natin ang sibakan, malawakang sibakan dyan sa PhilHealth.
Thank you, Secretary.
We go now to Maricel Halili of TV5, please.
Hi sir, magandang hapon po. Sir, follow-up lang po sa question ni Arian kanina about Facebook. I understand the President is now eyeing to, or is not eyeing to ban Facebook in the country anytime soon. But how should we describe the message of the President last night about Facebook? Should we say that it is a warning, an appeal, or a threat against the admin?
Wala po. Malinaw po sabi niya, kinakailangan mag-usap tayo. And alam niyo, the President is not alone. Hindi po nag-iisa ang Pilipinas dito. Yung Mark Zuckerberg nga, yung founder ng Facebook mismo, talagang sinasabi niya na mas marami talagang malawakang reforma ang kinakailangan nilang gawin. No? Sinabi nga niya minsan, baka nga kinakailangan magkaroon ng kahit papanong regulasyon sa Facebook, no? At kinakailangan ma-identify talaga nila kung sino talaga yung mga actors sa Facebook. So ito po ay usapin na nangyayari sa buong daigdig. Nagrereklamo ang maraming estado, hindi lang po ang Pilipinas, ang mga Europeans, dahil nga po din sa mga fact-checkers na pilim-pili lamang at laban sa mga gobyernong pinipili nila. No? So ito po ay kabahagi ng worldwide conversation na nangyayari. Ang pinagsimulan po kasi ng Facebook, kinakailangan i-connect nga yung mga kaibigan at mga kamag-anak. Pero ngayon po, nagagamit na talaga siya sa politika. No? So nagbabago yung anyo ng Facebook, kinakailangan din magkaroon po tayo ng mga bagong mga patakaran, no? Para naman po magkaroon ng level playing field dyan po sa Facebook.
And so just to reiterate, will the President initiate the dialogue with the Facebook admin? And number two, nagte-trending po kasi ngayon, speaking of social media, trending po kasi ngayon sa Twitter yung hashtag Paalam Duterte following the statement of President last night that he offered to resign from his post. Your thoughts on that, sir?
Wala naman po. Alam ko naman po kung sino yung mga yan. No? Alam ko po kung sino namumuno sa kanila. Alam naman natin kung sino yung mga kalaban ng gobyerno, yung mga gahaman po sa kapangyarihan, yung mga hindi makaantay sa 2022, yung mga nawalan ng hanap buhay dahil ginagawang hanap buhay ang gobyerno. Hindi po ako nasusurprise.
Sir, on the PhilHealth issue, should the President push through with his plan to abolish PhilHealth, what will happen to ordinary employees of PhilHealth? And ano yung assurance na doon sa premium or yung bayad po na ibinibigay ng mga members ng PhilHealth, should they continue to pay for the premium?
Wala pong problema yan. Nakasaad nga doon sa nauna ko lang final. Ito po yung ginawang batas na universal healthcare, no? Na magkakaroon naman talaga ng screening para ang ma-retain lang po sa bagong i-establish para palitan ng PhilHealth ay yung mga matitino. Sino ba ho yan? Yung mga walang kaso, sigurado naman lahat ng mga bugok dyan kahit papaano makakasuhan. Ang problema, pag di mo inabolish, kinakailangan patunayan pa bago sila matanggal. Pero pag na-abolish yan, pwede na mas madali magtanggal. No? Kung mayroong bahid ng korupsyon, pwede na tanggalin. Pero magkakaroon po tayong tinatawag na transitory provision. Siyempre, lahat ng bayad dapat patuloy pa rin dahil hindi naman po titigil ang PhilHealth kahit buwagin siya. Magkakaroon po yan ng kapalit. Ang sa aking panukalang batas, ang pangalan, National Health Service. No? So, magkakaroon po yan ng kapalit at tuloy-tuloy naman po yung mandato ng PhilHealth o kung ano man yung papalit, sang-ayon po sa batas na isinulong natin, Universal Healthcare, siya pa rin po ang primary purchaser ng lahat ng medical services and goods. So, wala pong magbabago, mga mukha lang, matatanggal lang po ang korupsyon kapag nabuwag at bumbuo ng bagong organisasyon. Nagaganap din ng ginagawa po ng PhilHealth.
Thank you. Thank you, Secretary.
Maraming salamat, Maricel. Punta naman tayo kay Yusek Roque.
Secretary, tanong mula kay Salarina Monte of Manila Shimbun, PRRD o President Duterte mentioned last night that the government will sell its property in Japan. Specifically, which property, why? And why does the government want to sell this property first and not the other government assets? How much does the government expect from the sale of that property?
Well, alam niyo po, ito isang suggestion lang kung kinakailangan pa natin ng pondo para sa COVID response. Pero fortunately, maraming gaya ng Razon Group, nandyan na rin po ang MVP Group, nandyan na rin po yung Ayala Group na tumutulong naman po sa gobyerno sa pagbibigay po ng mga pangangailangan natin sa COVID. So sana po hindi na kinakailangan magbenta ng mga assets. Pero kung hindi po ako nagkakamali, at least 2 po yung assets sa Japan. Nagkaroon na po ng desisyon ng Korte Suprema dyan, yung Laurel versus Executive Secretary. Ang sabi po ng Korte Suprema, these properties constitute part of the national patrimony dahil nga po symbolic yung pagbibigay niyang 2 property yan by way of war reparations. No? At kinakailangan kung ibebenta yan, hindi lang po presidente ang sasang-ayon, kung hindi pati po ang Kongreso. Ang kaso po pala ay Laurel versus Garcia.
Thank you, Secretary.
Maraming salamat, Yusek. Going now to Tricia Terada, please.
Good afternoon, Secretary. Follow-up lang po dun sa naunang question tungkol po dun sa pagbebenta ng properties. I think, sir, the context was about yung nagbebenta ng properties to solve this problem na pagkawala ng pondo dito sa PhilHealth. Sir, since natanong na po kung ano yung properties that we're talking about, we're interested to know kung hanggang saan na lang po ba yung pera o pondong meron yung PhilHealth to support its current beneficiaries na umabot sa point na kailangan po ibenta itong ilang real estate properties natin sa Japan. And if I remember correctly, sir, DFA has also said na it may lead to legal problems ito pong pagbibenta. I think yung isa doon is yung Roppongi property.
Well, 2 nga po yan, no? At meron ng desisyon ng Korte Suprema, pero hindi naman sinabi ng Korte Suprema imposibleng ibenta. Sinabi lang ng Korte Suprema, kinakailangan magkaroon ng pulisiya galing sa Presidente at Kongreso. Now, ang problema po dito sa PhilHealth, sa tindi po ng problema niya, hindi natin talaga alam kung hanggang kailan lang ang pondo ng PhilHealth. Dahil nga, wala naman nagsasabi ng totoo dyan eh. Dahil nga lantaran yung naging nakawan. Yung head ng IT dyan, kaya nga po dinimanda yan eh. Dahil talagang kakulangan niya ng IT department, dapat yan isang pindot natin, alam natin kung nasa ng PhilHealth. Pero wag po kayo mag-alala dahil nga po sa Universal Healthcare Law, kung kulang po yan, tutustusan po galing sa kaban ng taong bayan. Kaya nga po, kung kinakailangan, ibebenta yung mga properties na yan. At hindi lang naman puro Roppongi yan, marami pa tayong ibang mga properties na po pwedeng ibenta. No? So, in other words, sinasabi lang ng Presidente, sagot ko ang inyong kalusugan dahil yan ang batas na sinertify niyang urgent, nung yan po itinatalakay sa Kongreso, paninindigan po niya yung obligasyon ng Estado na pangalagaan ang kalusugan ng mga Pilipino. If it means having to sell assets, why not?
Sir, doon naman po sa issue ng Facebook. Since Facebook is a private entity and they're operating here in the country as a private entity, sir, in a way, hindi po ba entitled sila to parang conduct whatever they want to do with their own business, kumbaga, have their own screening with whatever they want to do with their business or their platform?
That is correct. Ang sinasabi lang ng Presidente, dapat maging patas sila. Bakit ang freedom of speech binibigay lang nila sa mga kontra-gobyerno? Bakit naman sinusupil nila yung boses ng mga kampi po sa gobyerno? Now, ang sabi naman po ng Presidente, pag-usapan natin because the Philippine government has allowed Facebook to operate in the Philippines, as in fact, we're the #1 users of Facebook.
Secretary, meron pong retired government official that asked the Supreme Court to issue a temporary restraining order to stop the IATF from imposing quarantine restrictions on senior citizens during the pandemic. Sinasabi po that it's inhumane and it violated their human rights. What does the IATF think of this? And maybe, sir, a reiteration na lang po ng position ng IATF tungkol dito.
The IATF cannot be bothered by this suit. Karapatan niya yan. Pero naninindigan pong IATF na yung prohibition po sa galaw ng mga seniors is borne by science and medicine. Sa buong daigdig po, ang mga tinatamaan at namamatay sa COVID-19 ay ang mga seniors at merong comorbidities. And that's a scientific fact. So itong kaso po, bagamat hindi natin pinapangunahan ng Supreme Court, tingin ko po wala pong mangyayari dyan. Dahil isa sa acknowledged powers of the state is the power of police power. At ang basahan po pag-exercise ng police power ay yung pangalagaan ang kalusugan mismo ng mga seniors. So to the petitioner, ito pong pagbabawal sa inyong movement outside of your residence except for work and to procure necessities is for your own benefit. It is to protect your lives amidst the proven fact po na mga namamatay sa COVID-19, karamihan po senior citizens.
Thank you, Secretary. Salamat po.
Okay. Okay. Meron pa ba kayong tanong kay Dr. Wong because he has to leave at 1? Do you have questions too for Mike Ray Aquino and Christian Gonzalez?
I have kay Dr. Ong.
Okay, please. Dr. Ong, go ahead, Joseph.
Sir, good afternoon, Dr. Wong. Sir, yung sa data na lang during the decision-making process of the IATF, what is our ADR, Metro Manila, and our 2-week growth rate? Can we just get that figure?
I don't have it on my fingertips. I'll have to look it up. Maybe I'll just send it to you.
Okay, sir. Sige po, I'll just wait for it. Thank you, sir.
Okay. So, Dr. Wong, thank you very much for joining us. Since there are no more questions for you, sa ulitin po. I call now on Yusek Roque again.
Okay. Secretary, tanong mula kay Heidi Sampang ng DZAS, humihingi po ng saklolo ang mga magsasaka dahil sobrang baksak ang presyo ng palay. Mas mura pa nga daw ang palay ngayon kumpara sa face mask. Posible din daw lalo pang bumaba ang buying price ng palay dahil kapag tag-ulan ay bumababa din ang kalidad ng aning palay. Dahil dito may mungkahi na bigyan din ng ayuda ng gobyerno ang ating mga magsasaka.
Meron naman po talagang pinapautang ang ating Department of Agriculture at yan po ay nakasaad din sa Bayanihan 2. At meron pong regular na programa na nagbibigay nga po ng tulong ang DA maski po walang pandemya. Nandyan na po talaga yan. Now, ano pong ginagawa ngayon? Tutulungan po ang NFA, ang DA at ang mga lokal na pamahalaan para sila na po ang bumili ng mas kahit papaano mas mataas na presyo sa ating mga magsasaka dahil alam natin na napakadaming Pilipinong nakasandal po sa pagsasaka lalong-lalo na po ng bigas para sa kanilang hanap buhay.
Thank you, Secretary.
Okay, punta naman tayo kay Melo Acuña. Melo, wala kang audio. Melo, sandali, wala kang audio.
Okay.
Ayan,
yeah,
meron na.
Good afternoon, Secretary. Binanggit po ng World Bank na yung COVID-19 shock magiging dahilan ng pagkakaroon ng mga bagong mahihirap. Ito yung tinagurian nilang new poor. At yung mga dating nailigtas na sa poverty through the poverty alleviation programs ng pamahalaan, maaaring mahulog ulit sa kahirapan. Meron po kaya tayong paraan para malaman kung sino-sino ang mga ito?
Well, sa akin po, no, bagamat ako po ay hindi talaga ekonomista, undergrad degree lang ako in economics, dahil po sa pandemya, talaga pong hard hit yung ating turismo at hard hit din po yung ating mga OFWs. At ito po yung mga tinatawag nga ng World Bank na dati-rati naisalba na natin sa kahirapan. So, ito po ang dahilan kung bakit unti-unti po natin binubuksan ng turismo dahil nga alam natin na napakadaming mga kababayan natin na nakadepende sa sektor na yan. No? At ito rin po ang dahilan kung bakit ang TESDA, ang DA, ang DTI ay hindi lang nagpapautang sa mga OFWs na napauwi, kung hindi, sinusuportahan din po natin sila na magkaroon sila ng retooling, kumbaga, no, para magkaroon sila ng alternatibong hanap buhay. So, malungkot pong katotohanan, pero talagang turismo at mga OFWs po hard hit by the pandemic.
Yeah, nabanggit din po ng World Bank na yung darating na halalan sa 2022 ay maaring makapagpaangat ng ekonomiya sa ikalawang bahagi ng 2021 hanggang doon sa 2022. Ano po ang projections ninyo?
Alam nyo naman, ang halalan is always good for the economy. And that's why no Filipino will ever consent na walang halalan. 3 years lang sila dyan. No? Every 3 years lang sila. Tapatan na, no? Every 3 years lang naman sila nakikinabang sa mga politiko. No? So anyway.
Pahabol lang, kung bubuwagin po ang PhilHealth, saan mapupunta yung pera?
Doon sa papalit po sa PhilHealth. Meron namang papalit dyan eh. Paulit-ulit kong sinasabi, yung version ko dati, ang binubuo nating bago ay National Health Service. So ililipat lang po siya doon sa bagong organisasyon na gagampanan din ang mga responsibilidad ng PhilHealth.
Maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Melo. Back to you, Sec. Roque.
Secretary, tanong mula kay Rose Novenario ng Hataw, ano po ang reaksyon ng palasyo sa pahayag ni Bayan Secretary General Renato Reyes Jr. na dapat atupagin ng gobyerno ang problema sa pandemya? Hindi ang pagbabalik ng mga fake pages at accounts sa FB. Tigilan na nila ang paggamit ng pondo at rekurso ng gobyerno para sa disinformation.
Kapwa bulag po ata si Renato Reyes, gaya ng ating VP, at hindi alam kung anong ginagawa ng gobyerno sa pandemya. Although nagtataka ako ba't hindi sila magkakampi din. No? Anyway, babayaan na po natin sila. Bayaan mo silang mabuhay sa kanilang mundo na walang ginagawa ang gobyerno kung kaligayahan nila yan. Joseph Morong, please.
Thank you.
Joseph Morong, please. Wala kang audio.
Sir, hello.
Yan.
Okay, go. Sir, yun munang sa MGCQ, kasi meron kaya tang interview kanina sa unang hirit that you mentioned 200% yung second yung they got 2-week growth rate.
Hindi po.
I asked si Dr.
Hindi lang po ako naging malinaw siguro, pero hindi po yun ang intention ko. Ibalik mo yung screen. Dinidescribe ko lang po kung ano yung bagong classification system. At ang binabasa ko po, in fact, ito yung binabasa ko. Yung sa 2-week growth rate, kapag 200% or less, medium. Kapag high, it is in excess of 200. Now, kanina po, sinabi rin ni John Wong na tama naman po ako, it's between 0 to 200% ang ating 2-week growth rate. At yung ating attack rate ay moderate, no, under medium, 1 to 7 per 100,000. Kaya ang naging classification ay GCQ. So yun po yung yung 200%. It's not at 200%, it's between 0 to 200%. I hope that makes the
Okay, so you gave me already the
Dali po, tatanong ko, meron ka bang slide dyan on Metro Manila? Wala po sa amin yung actual figure eh. So it's ang growth rate po natin over 2 weeks is between 0 to 200, and then ang ating attack rate is moderate because there's 1 to 7 per 100,000 na meron pong attack rate.
Yeah, okay. So all right, sir. Sir, parang medyo using this matrix, no, or data analytics, mukhang medyo mahirap at matatagalan tayo to graduate to MGCQ kasi parang medyo this is a very stringent measure.
Well, may pag-asa naman po, no, as reported by the UP Octa Group, no. Ang growth rate naman po natin ay bumagsak din. Tapos yung ating attack rate ay bumabagsak din, no? So there's always hope.
Sir, can I go to the statement of the president last night to resign? He was mentioning this in the context of his frustration over corruption. And I remember there was a meeting on September 16 with the congressional leaders, si Senator SASP Soto and then si House Speaker APC. Yung offer to resign niya, was that made during that meeting, and was the offer made to the leaders of our legislative branch?
I can say that it was not made there. I think it was made a lot earlier.
A lot earlier, hindi po yun yung reference natin.
Hindi.
Okay, sir, but this is not the first time the president has said this, but last night, sabi niya parang sasabihin boto or hindi, but he said it. Is the president serious about his offer to resign?
Well, let's just say he's serious about his expression of exasperation. Seryoso siya kasi pikam-pika na po siya sa korupsyon.
But he's not going to resign, right?
Mukhang hindi naman po. Dahil gagamitin nga niya yung natitira niyang 2 taon para linisin ang gobyerno. So again,
Alright, sir.
yung mga the persons I have called their attention to, at sinabi naman ni Presidente, may isa tanggapan na talagang papahiyain niya by the end of the year. Huwag po kayong magkamali that I don't speak for the President. Marami na pong nagkamali in thinking it's just Harry Roque talking about corruption.
Okay. Sir, can I go to Facebook? Categorically say, sir, kagabi sabi niya, what is life after Facebook? First off, what does he mean by that?
Hindi ko po alam. Just take the President for what he has said. Alam niyo naman ako, ang policy ko, pag nagsalita ang President, I don't need to annotate. Ang sabi niya, kinakailangan mag-usap kami ng Facebook. Mag-uusap po sila ng Facebook.
That's not a threat to shut down.
Hindi naman po. Mag-uusap po sila. Dahil ang sabi nga niya, hindi ko nga alam kung anong kaya kong gawin eh. Kasi alam mo, hindi naman taking Presidente, so hindi niya alam ang full extent na pwedeng gawin ng Estado pagdating sa Facebook, no? So, ang sabi lang niya, pero kinakailangan talaga pag-usapan to. Hindi naman po pwede na kapag pabor sa gobyerno, tinatanggal nila.
Sir, okay, last na lang. You said that the President is offended by the action of Facebook to take down yung mga pro-government pages. But some of those pages, some may say that are troll pages. So what is your position?
Hindi ko
And
po
do
alam.
you want Facebook to restore yung mga tinake down nila na pro-government pages?
Hindi ko po alam. Basta ang alam ko, ang galit na galit hindi lang ang Presidente, kung hindi ang iba pang mga ahensya ng gobyerno, yung Save Our Children. Kasi nga po, obviously, talagang yan po ay tinitira ang NPA for their notorious recruitment of children, which is an international crime. No? Sa ICC po, ang dami na pong na-convict dyan for the criminal recruitment of children as combatants. And yet, pati yon tinanggal ng Facebook.
But you're fine with troll pages?
Hindi ko po alam kung troll sila eh. Kasi ako naman, ang dami rin trolls na umatake sa akin, eh, na-ignore ko lang. Tapos, ban them, no? Ano yan? It is Hands
Yes, sir.
Off
Hands Off Our Children.
Hands Off Our Children is the name of
Okay.
the page.
Sorry for the dogs. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Joseph, back to you, Sec Rocky.
Question from Sam Danilla of Business Mirror. Nakapag-report na po kaya si PhilHealth Dante Geran regarding that his previous commitment to reshuffle the personnel of PhilHealth? If yes, ano po ang highlights of the said report? Maglalabas or nakapaglabas na kaya si President Rodrigo Duterte ng any issuance for the reorganization of PhilHealth?
Wala pa po akong alam dyan. But I will personally meet with Attorney Geran on Friday.
Second question po niya, meron na kayang tentative date kung kailan makikipag-meet si President Duterte with representatives of Facebook? Nag-order na kaya si Presidente sa DICT or other government agencies to investigate Facebook? If yes, ano ang mga nasabing agencies?
Well, alam niyo po, I think I will be involved there kasi nung una nagkaroon ng usapin sa panig ng gobyerno ng Facebook, ito po yung bago sila pumili ng mga fact-checkers. So napasama po ako sa usaping yan, no? Pero pinumunuan po yan ni then Foreign Affairs Secretary Alan Peter Cayetano, no? So I think it is the same group that will initiate contact again with Facebook.
Ang third question po niya, since nag-take effect ang Bayanihan 2, nakapag-submit na kaya ang Malacañang ng report to Congress regarding the use of its allocated funds? Will the said report be released to the public and the media like in the case of the Bayanihan 1?
Sa Lunes po ang kauna-unahang report under Bayanihan 2 and of course we will report it to the public. Ipapublish po namin yan.
Thank you, Secretary.
Okay, and then we call on Pia Ranada, please.
Hello, sir. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Sir, just on Facebook again. Yes, sir. Sir, kasi earlier you were saying that it's unfair for Facebook to be taking down supposedly only Facebook pages that are pro-government. But Facebook already explained that they actually took down these pages not because of their content, but because of the inauthentic behavior that they observed with these pages. So basically, parang may coordinated inauthentic behavior. That's why tinanggal sila, hindi dahil sa content ng posts. So sir, can the palace explain why the government is so involved or is so at least at the very least supportive of a network flagged by Facebook for coordinated inauthentic behavior?
Because we believe in freedom of speech. They may use as justification inauthentic behavior, but the effect is censorship. Kasi yung ideya na laman ng page na yon, nabura. Now, this is a worldwide debate, Pia, so we cannot actually finish this issue now. No? It's a debate ongoing not just in the Philippines, but worldwide. And I welcome, in fact, the possibility that itong children's group na tinanggal ng Facebook, I welcome them and I urge them, bring this to court because the entire planet is waiting for jurisprudence in this regard. Tayo naman, talaga namang nangunguna tayo pagdating sa jurisprudence, no? Whether be it IHL or whether be it freedom of speech. No? Yung criminal libel as contrary to freedom of speech is because of a Philippine submission. No? So, I encourage yung mga grupo na pro-government, pumunta po kayo sa hukuman at tingnan po natin kung ano ang magiging ruling ng ating hukuman.
Sir, the network kasi is being accused of spreading false news and even dangerous news like red tagging certain lawmakers and groups and even journalists. So sir, parang Facebook is saying this violates their policies and it also causes harm to democracies. And even people's safety. So, sir, are you saying that Malacañang believes that fake news and red tagging is protected speech?
Again, as I was saying, una-una, no, yung sa tanong mo, ibig sabihin, talagang content-based restriction yung ginagawa ng Facebook. Tinitear down sila because of the content. And as you know, in freedom of speech jurisprudence, content-based restriction is presumed to be unconstitutional. Number two, yung ano nga ba yung tanong niya kanina, nawala tuloy yung aking thought, no?
Sir,
yung mga
protected
fake
speech
news,
po
no?
ba yung red
Yung mga fake
tagging?
news, alam mo yung mga yan, talagang responsibilidad nila na magpili kung ano yung fake news. Pero remember, in this instance, di na sinasabi nagpapakalat ng fake news yan. Ang sabi nila, inauthentic behavior. So, hindi issue ngayon ng fake news, Pia, no? Ang issue rito is, anong epekto ng pagtatanggal ng mga pages na yan? And the Philippine government submits it's a form of censorship.
Sir, by inauthentic behavior, they mean po, sir, fake accounts being used to spread a certain propaganda or messaging in a very coordinated, widespread manner. So, sir, fake accounts, does the government agree with the use of fake accounts to spread a certain message to the
people? In the first place, we don't know if it is fake account. We do not have access for Facebook making that conclusion. Pero alam mo, in constitutional litigation, there is such a thing as symbolic action too. So perhaps what they refer to as, ano ba yun? Coordinated, inauthentic behavior may be a form of symbolic speech too. I'm just saying it's a possibility. No? And I'm saying that we are now opening jurisprudence in this regard, and I think every country in the world will have to deal with this particular issue because obviously Facebook and their fact checkers now have assumed the role as guardians of truth.
So, sir, you think deception of people using fake accounts is protected because it's symbolic?
You have concluded that they are fake
It's
accounts.
deception.
No, you have
but sir, you're saying
concluded.
that even the use of this could be
Pia,
symbolic.
this press briefing is not intended to debate with you. No? We are not conceding that these are fake accounts. We do not know what basis Facebook had in classifying them as fake accounts. All we know is that the effect is that it is suppressing pro-government pages, which should not
Hi,
be.
sir. Last question. Sir, lastly, given that and the findings of Facebook that army captain was behind these pages, some of these pages. What kind of investigation will Malacañang call for, if any? How deep will you go in investigating this? And are you concerned about these links to the army?
I don't think there's any law violated by an individual exercising his freedom of speech against known enemies of the government. Okay?
So, sir, no investigation by the palace?
Well, unless there's a complainant, how do we investigate? Okay? Yusek Roque, please. Thank you. Pia?
Thank you.
Question from Tina Panganiban Perez ng GMA7. A group of jeepney drivers is set to file a petition before the Supreme Court today to ask that IATF and DOTR resolutions on jeepney routes be invalidated for being discriminatory. The group says 60 to 80% of their members have not applied their routes since March. Any reaction daw po?
We will respect the decision of the court. But if the allegation is discriminatory, then the claim is it is violative of Equal Protection Clause. Napakahirap pong pruebahan yan from my experience as a constitutional litigator. Okay?
From Jonah Villaviray ng Asahi, Manila, yung tanong pa rin sa Japan, the president announced last night the government is selling Philippine properties in Japan. How far along in the process are we, and which properties are we eyeing to sell? How much in dollars do we hope to get out of the sale?
Ang alam ko lang po, isang property is valued at 4-point-something billion yen. No? Ewan ko ba? I'm not really sure, but as I said, premature to talk about it because we would need the imprimatur of both the president and Congress. No, I think one of the property is valued at 2.8 billion, but I don't know what currency. Kasi if it's yen, that's not much. Okay. Now, yung tanong po ni Joseph Morong, I have the answer now from Dr. Wong. Paki-flash uli yung ating matrix. Ang sabi po ni Dr. Wong, nasarado ito. Paki-flash po yan. Ang GCQ for Metro Manila is because ang ating 2-week growth rate po ay 45%, kaya nasa medium tayo, 0 to 200. At ang ating daily, tama. At ang ating average attack rate is 5.8, kaya talagang nasa medium tayo. Okay? Ulitin ko po, at daily attack rate is at 5.8 per 100,000, moderate, and our 2-week growth rate is at 45%. So, talagang medium tayo and moderate GCQ.
Okay. Secretary, question from Julie Aurelio. What was the IATF's reason for extending the GCQ in Metro Manila, contrary to the business sector's desire to ease restriction and continue opening the economy?
Kasasagot ko lang po dahil po dito sa criteria for de-escalation or escalation using this latest LGU risk matrix. Ang 2-week growth period natin ay 45%. Ang attack rate po ay 5%. Ay 5 pala, hindi percent. 5 lang.
Okay. Question from Ace Romero. You talk about naming government representatives as fact checkers. How can we ensure that they will be credible given that they cannot say something critical about the government?
Same way that we can be sure that Rappler and Vera Files will not say anything favorable to the government.
From Ace Romero pa rin po, President Duterte wants to talk to Facebook. He asked the social media giant about its purpose, and I quote, "If we can't find a solution, I'm sorry. If a ban is not being considered, is the administration considering imposing restriction in Facebook?"
Sabi
Will
nga po
this
ni
not
ang sabi po ni President, go ahead.
Will this not curtail the free flow of information?
Yun nga po pinaglalaban natin, free flow of information kasi tinatanggal nila yung pabor sa gobyerno. Di ba po? Yan talaga ang issue rito. Bakit pagpabor sa gobyerno tinatanggal? Now, malinaw po ang sabi ni Presidente, hindi ko alam kung anong magagawa ko. Pero dahil binigyan natin sila ng pagkakataon na mag-operate sa Pilipinas, dapat mag-usap.
Tatlong question na lang po, Secretary. From Karen Lema ng Reuters, What was your basis for saying that Facebook is shutting down pages that favors government and is keeping those that are critical of the government? Can you cite instances when this happened?
Yun na nga po, yung Children's Advocacy Group.
Second question po niya, when you said kailangan ng bagong patakaran para magkaroon ng level playing field, are you saying there's a need for more measures to regulate Facebook content? Will this require legislation?
Well, it could, but you see, even the founder of Facebook recognizes that there may be need for regulation.
Okay. Ang tanong po ni Alvin Baltasar ng PBS Radio Pilipinas at ni Ace Romero ng Philstar ay pareho po. May meeting po ba later si President Duterte with Speaker Cayetano and Velasco? Will the meeting with Speaker Cayetano and Representative Velasco push through? Ano po ang magiging posisyon ni Presidente?
6 p.m. tonight, nasabi ko na po ang posisyon ni Presidente. I hope they honor the agreement, pero wala siyang magagawa kung walang boto si Congressman Lord Alan Velasco.
Thank you,
End
Secretary.
quote, quote and quote po yan para wala pong magalit sa akin. Yes, kung
Thank you,
wala na
Secretary.
pong tanong, as expected, marami po tayong tanong sa Facebook. Ulitin ko lang po, we are moving on new territory as far as freedom of expression jurisprudence is concerned. And I welcome the remarks of the President because it seems that the Philippines, again, will be primarily responsible for the formation of new norms on internet freedom of expression. So dahil wala na pong tanong, maraming salamat po sa ating mga panauhin, si Dr. John Wong, si Michael Ray Aquino, si Ginoong Christian Gonzales. Maraming salamat sa mga miyembro ng Malacañang Press Corps. Maraming salamat sa iyo, Yusek Roque. At sa ngalan po ng ating Presidente, Rodrigo Roa Duterte, let me just quote what has been in our jurisprudence. The true test of truth is the power of a thought to be accepted in the free marketplace of ideas. Sa ngalan po ng ating Presidente Duterte, ito po ang inyong spokes Harry Roque nagsasabing magandang hapon Pilipinas.